6, 5, 4.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry that there seems to be a technical hitch, but well, these things happen. So item 1 is to have a roll call and the virtual meeting explanation. So can we have a roll call? And I'm just going to do that by participants as they appear on my screen. Councillor Boutron.
Present.
Councillor Cornish.
Present.
Councillor Cromie.
Present.
Councillor Hicks.
Present.
Councillor Stockwell.
Present.
And those are the committee.
Oh, you
members.
haven't called my name, Councillor Jackson.
I'm sorry, Councillor Jackson.
I'm present.
You are too. So yeah, sorry, that's just come up. So those are all councillors now called for, as I understand it. But we are welcoming Councillor Llewellyn Burke, Deputy Leader. And also we are welcoming Juan Fosco, who's our internal auditor, Jack Dunkley, who's our external auditor, Kevin Suter is also our external auditor, and Pamela Koppelman, who is MSDC Group Accountant. And it says there are more, but I don't see that there is anybody else. And thank you for our host, Adrian, and secretaries, and Lucinda. And of course, Peter Stewart, Head of Corporate Resources, is with us also. And so good afternoon to everybody. Lucinda, would you like to just say why we're having the virtual meeting? Because we do have to just go through that to make that statement, don't we? Because Tom Clark's not with us this afternoon, is he?
That's right, Chairman. Actually, it was going to be me as Peter.
Is it Peter? Thank you.
Yes. I think in the absence of Tom, who can't be with us tonight, the Audit Committee, I've been asked to say these words, the Audit Committee is meeting virtually given the high COVID levels in mid-Sussex and the ongoing work to get the adult population double vaccinated. The rates have fallen slightly, but are still historically high within the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. To receive the apologies for absence, I don't believe there are any. So now I'm going to item 3, to receive declaration of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. And if anybody has got an interest, would you please raise your hand on the function? I don't see any, so we're going to continue then. We need to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 27th of July 2021. Again, to vote please on your yes, no buttons. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. On to item 5, to consider any items the chairman agrees to take as urgent. I have none. And that brings us on to item 6, review of the Treasury management activity, 1st of April, 30th September, which is going to be introduced by Pamela Koppelman. Pamela, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to clarify that I'm actually Group Accountant at Ada and Worthing Councils, but operate part of your Treasury management function, and we supply these reports. And on that point, Peter, shortly before the meeting, asked me to have a look at section 6, in particular to do with the capital financing requirement. And I can see, it was my responsibility to check this report, and I can see that in section 6.3, in the table, the actual figures are all fine, but the net movement in CFR, which is the capital financing requirement, should of course include the 19.7 million that you decided to allocate as a capital receipt against the Orchard Shopping Centre expenditure. So that might not make sense. I believe you wanted to ask a couple of questions about capital financing requirement, which might then explain that in better detail, but I apologise for that.
Thank you for pointing that out, and thank you. Councillors, have you got any questions that you might like to raise? Just to be clear too, Pamela, just guide us to which page the thing that you were referring to.
I don't have a page number on this copy that I've downloaded from your agenda. It's
2021.
Thank you. And I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to let my dog out of the door. I'm so sorry, the joy from home.
Well, the joys of working from home, Pamela, and thank you very much. Yes, I have got a couple of questions, but have councillors got questions before mine? And please raise your hand if you have, and I'm looking to see if there are any hands going up. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you. Could we just say, in terms, I know there's two deposits on 2-year durations, and in terms of what assessment is made when we make a deposit for more than a year, in terms of particularly at the time when interest rates are increasing. Just wonder if we could say a bit more about that, please.
Yes, certainly. We have to come to a balance, and obviously each time we place an investment, we don't know for certain whether rates are going to go up or down. We have tended to hold off on any longer term investments over the last 18 months. Peter has preferred to do that, and it has turned out to be the correct judgment because rates hopefully will be going up in the near future. But sometimes it is useful to get that security. We are allowed to invest up to 50% of the funds for more than a year, but we have kept most of it short over the last 18 months.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stockwell.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yes, just a quick question. We're looking to increase the amount that we can place with various banks, which I think means that we can increase our short-term investments there by about 10 million on an overall basis. Do we actually need to do that? We're currently on 78 million. Is that not sufficient? It's just a or does, by raising the rates, means that it gives us more scope in between times, if it's like in between issues and maturity dates. I'm just wondering where the issue is there, why we're needing to raise them, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor. At the moment, as at today's date, you are now on £90 million worth of investment.
All right, okay.
The intention behind increasing that limit is to give us flexibility. As you'll see, the rates that we can achieve vary hugely. And if we'd been able to put another million, say, with Goldman Sachs International Bank at 0.38%, that would be better than the 0.05% that we're getting with some of the other institutions. The smaller the total amount of your funds, the lower the counterparty limit that you require. But over the years, your total funds have been increasing and your counterparty limits are now relatively low compared with other local authorities. So, for example, we also operate the Treasury for another authority in Sussex, and their counterparty limits are much higher. I mean, it is entirely your choice. If we keep the lower limits, then we continue to diversify more widely, but it's a balance.
Can I just ask a supplementary on that one, please, Chairman?
Please do.
Yeah. Where we're increasing them, are they limited to the ones that are noted on the on our papers here?
That's the intention. Yes, we're very conservative with our investments, and yeah, as you say, it gives us another £10 million worth of flexibility.
Yeah,
sufficient.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Hicks, is that a historical hand?
Yeah, no, sorry, just one other point. You've usefully provided the links in terms of environmental policies for each of the organisations, but I wonder if there is there any way of, in terms of a minimum threshold or an independent assessment of environmental factors, whether in terms of whether there's any way of measuring that independently to monitor that analysis.
This obviously is a huge topic at the moment, but there's no standardised measure. There's a lot of what's called greenwashing around, where institutions claim that they're investing ethically, and for the most part they will be, but it's very difficult to isolate things. You may notice our other recommendation is to add HSBC's new ESG, Environmental, Social and Governance Money Market Fund. Obviously, that's only a small step, but it is a step in the right direction. Ada and Worthing are also adding that counterparty. And then we will have a £3 million limit that we know definitely is invested ethically. We've also found out that Standard Chartered, who we place some funds with, they have got a sustainability section. So when you place a deposit, you can opt to put it in their sustainability area. New things are coming online all the time. I attended a briefing last week where another of the money market funds federated say, 90% of their ones are fine, but they can't take out everything. They can't take out all all investments. So people are moving that way, and we are trying to maximise the amount that we're putting with those funds, and we are checking the policies as we invest.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with that question, actually, if I may. Just out of those banks that we've listed where we're increasing the investment from 4 million to 5 million for UK banks, is that a split amongst all of those, or do we choose? Because just on the environmental side of things, out of those, it's quite easy to see that Barclays are the worst offenders for investing in fossil fuels. So I'm just thinking, if we have a choice of where that money's going, this would be a good time to not choose Barclays. I don't mean that literally, but I mean, if we have a choice, then there's some other factors that we could think of if we're putting money in those better places, if you like.
It's entirely your choice. You tell us what to do. It's your policy, and we just operate it.
Then, thank you, Councillor Cornish. It's a very good point, and I think perhaps if we may, though, just leave it to you, because I know that sometimes, as I was talking with Peter yesterday, it's a struggle to find a home for money at the minute. Would you believe? The world's awash with it. So That's that. Panel, I don't know whether perhaps you might, councillors, I'm sure they've all spotted it and know exactly what it's all about, but if we were to go on to councillors' page numbers 21, but it's 6.3, the prudential indicator, operational boundaries for external debt. And there are some very different figures there for 2021, actual and revised. And I wonder perhaps you might just touch upon that for councillors' benefit.
Certainly, Chairman. The capital financing requirement is where the council spends capital money. It can be financed immediately through capital receipts or revenue contributions. But if you haven't got the financing to cover that capital expenditure, it forms your capital financing requirement, and you have to put aside money over the years to cover that. That's to ensure that any capital costs are spread over the years to council taxpayers, and that one lot of council taxpayer isn't paying all that money in 1 year or 2 years. It's a way of making it fair and spreading it out. And that's regardless of whether you need to borrow the money or whether you're using internal funds. As at the end of last year, we had spent 24 million, I think it was, on the Orchard Shopping Centre, and that formed part of your capital financing requirement, the 26.382 million. As at the 31st of March, you sold land at Hurst Farm, so that's a capital receipt, and you can then choose, and you did choose, to offset some of those funds against the capital cost of the Orchard Shopping Centre. So now suddenly your capital financing requirement has dropped by that amount. So that means you now only have to spread 7.195 million over the next 20, 30, 40 years, whatever period has been chosen. So it costs the council taxpayer through the general fund less each year than it would have done otherwise. I hope that's clear.
Well, I think it is. And thank you for that. Councillor Jackson, is that historical hand or?
No. My particular question, I'm new to all of this, and I know we're talking about investments for capital funds, but obviously you must have some funds stashed away somewhere to pay for general revenue costs over the course of the coming months. Where is that kept, and what's that sort of figure? How much money have we got in liquidity, if you like?
That is part of these funds. So where you see money market funds, for example, Federated, BlackRock, those are liquid funds that we can access immediately. So tomorrow morning, you will have spent money on your revenue expenditure. We download the bank statement, and if it's showing overdrawn, we bring back money from one of those money market fund investments. I'm just drilling down to them now. So anything that's got money market, MMF next to it, is a money market fund investment, and those are instantly liquid. Also Handelsbanken, you'll see we have a just Handelsbanken account and a 35-day notice account. So again, we can access those funds either immediately or with 35 days notice. So that's the liquidity that's used to run your general fund on a daily basis.
Right, thank you for that explanation.
So councillors, are there any more questions on this section, agenda item 6? I see none. So on that basis, I would like to go to the recommendations. I'm not going to read them out in full, but merely to ask under item 3, the committee is asked to recommend the following to the full council: Roman 1, Roman 2, Roman 3, Roman 4. If you are content with that, I would ask you to confirm that by voting with your tick buttons. Good, thank you very much. Right, that's going to bring us on then to item 7. And that's going to be introduced by Kevin Souter.
Mike, Pamela has a question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
No, sorry, I was just going to say thank you. Shall I leave now?
If you'd like to, or you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
But
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for all your input. Very, very good of you. Excellent. Thanks.
Bye.
Well, we're back to Kevin. Sorry to cut you off in your prime, Kevin, but Kevin Souter of EY, you're going to put the external audit progress report. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members. So the report on the agenda tonight is our progress report. Normally, we would be presenting our audit results report, but the key factor that has delayed us this year is the fact that the Council has received an objection to its accounts. Members of the public have statutory rights to ask questions on the accounts and to raise objections to the auditors. They can ask for items to be considered for a public interest report and or for the auditor to consider applying to the courts for a declaration that a transaction is unlawful. I have been asked to consider both aspects in a number of items raised to my attention. So the objection relates to some material items within the accounts and also to your arrangements for governance and decision making, which are part of my value for money responsibilities. So therefore, I cannot conclude on either of those responsibilities until I've gone through and completed the objection. So that is now in progress, and the stage we're at is that it is currently with the Council for their formal response to the matters raised. And if I recall correctly, I've asked for the response to be back with me by the end of this week. But in all other respects, we are significantly through the audit, which was mainly conducted in our planned visit during the summer. We don't have any significant items other than those noted in the report to bring to your attention. So I'd be happy to take any questions the members may have.
Kevin, thank you. Councillors, are there any questions on Kevin's report? Councillor Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Kevin, thank you. Yes, there's a bit of a worry on the objection that you've got, and I was just wondering whether, you probably don't know, or we probably can't say, whether that will have a material impact upon our figures or anything like that. But what I am concerned about is obviously the timetable for doing our audit, because I believe that we're supposed to have it done by a particular time, although I realise that time has been extended because of the COVID lockdowns and all that type of stuff. But so what sort of date should we be working to, and how much of a delay are we expecting, and will we be deemed sort of in default if we don't get our figures in a certain time, and on the basis that our next meeting is the 1st of March. Now, when are we going to see? That's getting quite close to finishing the end of the financial year, I would assume. So I just wondered what's our timetable looking like now, please?
Okay, so to take it from the points you raised, the items the objection relates to do include material numbers within your accounts. So therefore, if there is a problem, it is materially going to affect your accounts. Okay. But that's the big if, and that's the process I have to work through. So that does represent a delay, because it's not a question of time, it's a question of getting it right, not to hit an arbitrary deadline, but to do the process properly and to make sure I've gone through the aspects with reference to natural justice as well. So you can't just take a decision and not include both parties and how you've gone through that. And then members of the public do have their rights. And if, for example, they believe I've got this wrong, they can then go to judicial review. So obviously there's very much a vested interest for myself to get it right and get it properly, and as well as efficiently. What does that mean upon your responsibilities? So the requirement for the council is to publish its accounts by the 30th of September with an opinion if one has been given. One has not been given So therefore, you publish your accounts as of the 30th of September, and you have therefore met your responsibilities. You then republish your accounts with the opinion when it is given. So you are entirely in accordance with your statutory responsibilities at the moment. Once the audit is completed, I will be able to issue the opinion and audit certificate, and then you will be able to republish your accounts at that point in time. There are no further consequences. That is it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for the question, Councillor Stockwell. Are there any more questions to Kevin on this section? I don't see any more questions. That being so, I'm going to ask you to confirm that the report is received and that you're comfortable with that, and to vote with your yes/no buttons. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're going to go now on to item 8, which is the internal audit, and that's going to be introduced by Mr. Peter Stewart. And so, Peter, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a short introduction, and I'll hand over to Juan. But you'll appreciate that, well, the summer's been and gone already, and the audit contract's got off to let's say a slightly slower start than perhaps we might have thought. But the important thing is that all the audits that we do over the year, the fundamental systems, are generally done over the winter months anyway, winter and spring months, because of course you want to get the maximum sample size that you can for the year. You only get that really at the end of the year or towards the end of the year. So I'm not particularly worried about the start of the contract. Inevitably, there's a lot of setting up to do as part of these things. And one part that we found a little bit more troublesome than perhaps you might have thought was actually moving all the files across from Crawley Borough Council, well, they were actually on our system, on a SharePoint drive, and then getting access for Mazars to see all those and have them populated and understand what's been going on in the last few years as well before starting their own work. Anyway, the important thing is that the program of work is underway. Audits have started. And when they haven't started, Juan and I have actually exchanged notes on when they are starting. So I think Juan will tell you in a second. I think he's made contact with all the key contacts he needs to, and he has a full diary, I'm afraid, for Juan, don't you, for the next 6 months. But with a view to actually finishing off all the fundamental systems and starting some work on things like cybersecurity that I know members are interested in. So without further ado, I think I'll probably hand over to Juan, who can fill you in on some of the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, just echoing your introduction. That's correct. I've started having meetings with the relevant heads of service, business unit leaders, and also the forum.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're struggling to hear you.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if my settings are right. Can you hear me now?
That's a little better.
Yeah, a bit better.
Oh, sorry. I'll try to see what's going on. Well, it should all be fine. I'll continue, but if you don't hear me, please let me know.
I think perhaps if you just speak up a little too, that would help.
Okay, I will do. I'll start again. I've met with relevant heads of service for all the audits in the plan. I've also met with business unit leaders and with the former auditor from Crawley as well, to have a better understanding of previous results, or to understand whether there were any key risks that we should be aware of, and to focus our attention to those findings. From our side, I've been liaising with our resourcing team to secure some senior auditors, which are in very high demand at the moment. Q3 and Q4 for us is very busy as usual, but I was successful in my request, and these senior auditors will cover some of the key finance related audits in the plan. The start dates for the audits have been accommodated following the details provided by the business unit leaders. And we also are trying to avoid periods of high volume of work, such as year end. We will start our first audit on the 29th of November, so in a couple of weeks' time. And we'll make a start with housing benefits, and it will be followed by business rates this side of Christmas. There are also 2 audits in the plan. These are grants assurance and risk management awareness training. For these 2, I'm liaising with our specialists to agree on potential start dates and to deliver this work. On IT audits, as Peter mentioned before, our IT manager, Neil Belton, had met with Simon Hughes from the council, and they have agreed on a March start for the cybersecurity audit. We also suggested replacing the remaining IT audit in the plan, which is the prioritization of ICT resources, for an audit needs assessment to be undertaken at the same time in March. These audit needs assessments allows IT audits to be focused on areas of risk within the IT environment that are of specific importance to the council. And the remaining audits had all been resourced, with the latest one starting on April 2022. However, this should allow us to prepare our internal audit opinion for the July 22 committee. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and well, welcome to Mid Sussex District Council too.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, have you got any questions for one? Councillor Hicks.
Yes, thank you. Just in terms of liaison with the external auditors, and given the delay in the audit, I don't know what time of year that might take place in terms of how do you, in terms of communication between the 2 sets of auditors, and thinking particularly perhaps of the property valuation issues or any other concerns they may have, or vice versa. Does the delay affect work in this financial year?
No, it shouldn't affect us, Councillor. Thank you for your question. Obviously, we do liaise with external audit just to check on their progress, or if there are any areas of concern that we should focus on, and that's vice versa. But their work should not affect our delivery, if I got the question right.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. You'll be very pleased to know I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to say thank you to Juan for his very comprehensive report. And so it stopped a lot of questions coming out. So thank you and welcome to the team.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So councillors, are there any more questions? I'm looking to see if there are any hands. I do not see any, so I'm going to go to the recommendation, which is on councillors' first page of agenda item 8, page 37, the recommendations. The committee is recommended to note the report. So if you could confirm to that with your reactions and the tick box. And thank you, councillors, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. That will take us to item 9, which is committee work for 2021-22, and Peter Stewart is going to introduce it. Peter, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, there's not much to say about the work programme. I know earlier on you heard Kevin talk about the March meeting, hoping to have things done by March. I mean, I was rather hoping to have things done before the March meeting, actually, and perhaps have another meeting in the diary. I remain hopeful that we can do that, or else the March meeting does become a bit heavyweight, because we'll be looking at backwards at the last year effectively, and almost looking at the audit for 21-22 at that point. So I'm hoping to get another report in between these two dates, now and March, but we'll see. We are rather in the hands of Kevin, and of course we're in the hands of the objector to how far they wish to frame their objection. But other than that, the March meeting will remain will be the last meeting of the year, and we will try and tie up all loose ends at that point whilst looking forward to the next municipal year as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Stockwell has a question.
Oh, sorry. You know, I always manage one somewhere.
No, excellent.
Grant certification. I'm not sure I've seen that on there before, Peter. Can you just explain that one to me, please?
That would be the housing benefit grant. So the housing benefit subsidy. I mean, normally that would be coming to you ideally around now, but it hasn't happened so far. There are, as Kevin said, it's been a funny year for auditing. Probably next year will be the same, but that's what it is. That's the housing benefit grant.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stockwell. Thank you, Peter. Are there any other questions on item 9? I do not see any hands up. Therefore, I'm going to go to the recommendations on page 39 of agenda item 9, section 3. The recommendations that the committee are recommended to note the committee's work programme as set out at paragraph 5 of this report. And if you would like to give your reactions to that. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us on to item 10, questions pursuant to the Council Procedure Rule 10.2. Due notice which have been given. I have none. And that being so, councillors, and for everybody who's been kind enough to join in the meeting from the auditors, both internal and external, I thank you very much indeed, and thank you for your time. So we conclude the meeting at 17:40, and we're asked to stay in post for 10 seconds whilst the live feed runs off. Thank you and good evening.